I don't even mean to say in politics, in American society,
right,
who aren't the McCain or Obama boosters, but who actually believe in freedom and who don't believe in government propaganda, no matter who the stooge standing up there at the podium is, whether he has an R or a D after his name. And your program, I mean, let's hope, for heaven's sake, I know you probably can't comment on this, that this program you people are all listening to gets on the air, because this would be genuinely the only program where you really hear genuine dissent, not this kind of dissent that you get from the New York Times versus the New York Post. You know, should the income tax be 38% or 37.2? I'm talking about real live dissent. You know, instead of saying, should we preemptively bomb A or B, we question the very idea of preemption.
Right.
Should the Fed inflate this much and ruin us this much or that much? We actually ask, well, is this thing even necessary? If this group of intellectual life in this country that is growing by leaps and bounds every day gains in influence, then I feel good about our future. But if not, well, I don't see who has the intellectual wherewithal or the credibility to resist it.
Okay. We're getting tweets from Shelley Roche, whom you both know, who does this for us, and here's one for Lew. What can we do to see more libertarian-minded representation in the government to get the message of freedom not only to Main Street but to Washington? Is there a chance that more people like Ron Paul can actually get elected to the government in our lifetimes, or is this going to be generation after generation of building a third, I won't even use the word party, but force in American politics, Lew?
Well, Judge, we don't have too good a record, do we? I mean, there's been Ron Paul in about the last 200 years. I'm trying to think of somebody else. So my guess is it's very, very difficult. And the reason is that most of the people who run for office, no matter what they're claiming, want to be in office to run other people's lives. I mean, they're just better dressed versions of the clerk that you met at the train station. So no, I don't think this is actually a good thing. We don't want to worry. If we can change the minds of the American people, if we can change the climate of opinion in this country, and it is changeable, and it can happen just as fast as it's happened in the reverse, then the people in Washington will bow down and obey the people. But we have to change the climate of opinion. In my view, it doesn't matter. It actually didn't help to elect Ronald Reagan. It didn't help, certainly just the reverse, to help either one of the Bushes. This is not the answer. Ron Paul is I think, unique. I think the efforts to try to put more Ron Pauls in Washington, I'm all for it if there should be one. I'll believe it when I see it.
Tom, without commenting on my personal sense of morality, was I just an impatient type A personality yesterday, cowed into obeying the government? And should I have had to do that? Is it realistic to expect that either the government would treat me as one of its owners, or better yet, that there'd be competition, another train company that I can go to which won't treat me like I'm a child? Or are these fanciful wishes that scholars talk about in seminars but are not going to happen in real life?
Yeah, I think they're like unicorns. You know, they're like unicorns, or Jim Cramer saying something sensible. I don't know why I'm piling on CNBC
That's
today.
Quite all right.
Sorry about that. But
given your audience and where I'm physically located, you're welcome to do that.
That's right. But I mean, all I can say is, man, I just wish I could have been there in person in a situation where you actually did rile up people in a line. Man, that would have been worth YouTubing.
I was hoping somebody had a camera because, I mean, if we had pitchforks, I think we would have taken over the clerk's booth. These were basically professional men and women who wanted to get on the same train that I did to go to Philadelphia and parts south, and just had enough. After it happened once, okay. After it happened twice, what's going on? After it happened the third time with a grown person with a briefcase in one hand and a tote bag in the other, being told to go back and stand on the front of the line until the light comes on, it was just too much to take. Lew, any final thoughts before we sign off until next week?
Well, Judge, I think that the kind of spirit that you exhibit, and as Tom points out, is represented by this show, is actually increasing among the American people. I see all kinds of signs of actual intellectual green shoots and real-time mustard seeds, not the baloney that we hear, as Tom says, on CNBC, but people's hearts and minds changing. I think people are getting upset in Washington. I'm seeing a tremendously revolutionary attitude. I'm very optimistic, not about the bunch in D.C., but about Americans. I think actually things are changing.
Lew Rockwell, Tom Woods, always a pleasure. Until next week on Freedom Watch, thanks for your time. Thanks for your eloquent, articulate thoughts.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Tom Palmer from the Cato Institute, an expert on Europe and an expert on Russia, and also somebody that knows quite a bit about the economy as well, joins us now. Tom, we've met before, but it's nice to see you on this show. Welcome to Freedom Watch.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Judge.
What's the state of the free market in the old, well, not the old Soviet Union, because we know what's happening in Eastern Europe, but how free is the free market in Russia today, and how much are the Russians suffering from the same recession that's being visited upon the rest of us?
Well, number one, the Russian recession is really serious. It happened earlier than in the rest of the world. The stock market collapse was really disastrous for Russia, a huge erasure of accumulated wealth, also made worse for them by the fall in oil prices, better for us overall. And then second, there's a capital flight from Russia because of lack of protection of property rights. The regime in the Kremlin feels that if they like something or their friends like something, they'll take it from you. And so investors keep their heads down, and they're afraid of being confiscated by what is known as the Siloviki, which means the powerful guys.
Peter Schiff of Pacific Euro Capital and a regular on Freedom Watch joins us now. Peter, we're on with Tom Palmer from Cato. Peter, always a pleasure. I won't even ask where you are because it's always a different place on the planet, but welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thank you. Did you have a good vacation last week?
Actually, I wasn't on vacation. It was a work assignment, but it was a beautiful place called New Orleans. It was very hot, but very beautiful, and mission accomplished. I don't know if you had a chance to hear what Tom was talking about. I was really touching upon his expertise in Russia, but he pointed out a couple of things which I sort of generally knew about, but didn't know the specifics of, and that is the flight of capital from Russia because of the willful failure of the government to protect property rights. Where's the capital going?
Being out of Russia?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of places. I know where my capital is going. I'm sending money predominantly to the Asian economies. I haven't been a big investor in Russia, although I think that they have the chance to benefit from what's happening in natural resources and things of that nature. But I've been investing mainly in Asia, in Europe, in some of the other commodity-type economies that I have more faith in the government infrastructure, such as, Australia, Norway, New Zealand, Canada. In fact, I was up in Canada just yesterday speaking at a conference up there, and I'm very optimistic on a lot of the companies north of the border. But what we need to learn from this lesson is not worrying about capital flight out of Russia, but capital flight out of the United States, because the U.S. government is undermining our capital markets and undermining the value of U.S.-based investments by creating so much inflation.
Tom, Peter brings up a good point. I know it's something that you've written and spoken about extensively, and that's protectionism. I mean, we heard Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister of Great Britain,
right,
at this moment, who knows for how much longer, say British jobs for British folks, and we hear the President say, buy Chrysler, even though Chrysler may be owned by an Italian company in the next couple of months. And where do you see protectionism?
Politician.
Where do you, aside from the fact that they're politicians and they're motivated by the political wins, where do you see protectionism going in the Obama administration with huge Democratic majorities in both houses of the Congress?
I'm very, very worried about the possibility of protectionism. It is, to me, very frightening that we could repeat the 1930s. The Smoot-Hawley tariff helped to crash the world economy. It caused a collapse in U.S. exports, about 50% within 1 year. World trade collapsed by 70% within 2 years because of a wave of protectionism around the world. The question in this administration is, will the decision be made on the basis of sound economics or just pure party politics? I hope it will be made on the basis of sound economics, but I am frightened about the possibility of the labor unions getting their hands into this. Chrysler is an example of this. What they're doing also is strangling productive American car manufacturers in Ohio,